咁咧，我哋咧就會係喺12月1號嘅，呢個星期三嚟嘅。咁時間咧就係上晝9點半啦，到去12點半咁樣嘅。咁就會3個鐘頭啦嚇，咁就喺 room 咧328。328C，OK。好，咁 2B 咧，咁就 which is 喺12月9號啦，OK，咁就係下晝嘅1點半去到4點半。咁房咧就會喺328D。而 2C 嘅同學咧，咁就係10號，星期五嚟嘅，2點半到5點半。間房咧就喺328C。好，咁咧就嗱除咗今堂之後咧，就直接係上呢家剩翻嘅呢一堂。咁，其餘嗰啲嘅即係 regular class 咧，我哋就唔需要再上噶啦。咁我亦會喺MS Team 嗰度會撤走相關嘅即係 login 嘅邀請啦，係啦。咁所以咧就嗰日係 face to face 嘅。OK，咁所以同學咧就呢3個鐘頭咧請你翻，而呢3個鐘頭咧係計 attendance 嘅。咁我就會應該今日都可以 upload 到相關嘅 revision 嘅資料咧上去個 Moodle 度嘅。咁同學咧就需要自行 print 嗰份嘅 question 出嚟啦，同埋自行要準備啲紙張。OK，咁就即係你可以帶電腦又得，你中意用紙張又得。咁即係我會 preferable 啦，我可能都會即係同大家咧將啲重要嘅嘢咧係會mark 低啦，或者係同一齊做。咁如果大家到時個時間係許可嘅話咧，我甚至可能都會俾你即場去做一條，make sure 你係可以即係學到一啲重要嘅 technique，咁去幫助到你個 examination 嘅。OK，好，咁啊詳情咧就到時再宣佈啦。OK，即係譬如因為即係好老實講，我到今日都仲未收到邊一日考試，有同學已經即係問㗎啦。咁但我真係到依家都未知，咁我只可以好詳細話俾同學聽咧。我哋個考試學校寫咗喺 calendar 嘅 period 咧，就係1月3號去到1月11號，咁我會喺呢一段時間裏邊考嘅啫。OK，好，咁就如果有唔清楚嘅地方咧，可以個別再揾我。咁就提一提同學咧，我哋今個禮拜咧就已經要即係我諗我就係要講一講嗰個嘅 PA evaluation form 同埋交功課嘅資料，就係嗰個 CA2，OK，CA2 嚟嘅。咁我咧就已經係upload 咗啲資料啦。咁依家先同大家睇一睇嗰個嘅Moodle，OK，教大家點樣去填呢樣嘢。咁就喺上面都寫清楚嘅 deadline 嘅啦。OK，好，咁咧就同學請你睇一睇 Moodle 啊嚇。OK，好。咁各位同學咧，依家睇到咧就應該係 Moodle 即係 update 咗嘅資料嚟嘅。咁呢個咧就係功課啦，上次同大家都有略略睇過嗰個 instruction 嘅啦。咁每一班咧就有個叫 project group list 嘅。咁喺呢度咧，你撳入去嘅話咧，OK，好，咁就應該會即時見到，咦，等等啊。 OK，咁就會即時見到咧你個班嘅即係名啦。OK，so we have made the revision for 3 hours on the coming 2 weeks. So in coming 2 weeks, so you have to check with the message I type on the chat box. And next we have to go look into the CA2 submissions. I upload some peer evaluation form and together with the submission link in the Moodles. So now I'm going to go through all these details with you. So when you go in, log in the Moodles, you can find this is a group project list. So you can find your teammates on the list. Okay. So according to the requirement of the projects, you you have to fill in the peer evaluation form. 好啦，咁我哋咧就跟翻嗰個要求啦。咁你會見到咧喺嗰個project 入邊，嗰個 requirement 下邊咧就每一班嘅組員名單啦嚇。咁大家咧睇到嗰個組員名單咧嘅下邊就有個 peer evaluation form 嘅。咁我今日就想同大家睇一睇呢個 peer evaluation form 需要點樣填。咁個 submission day 咧，個 peer evaluation form 咧，其實今朝早9點半開始咧，去到12月13號你 deadline 嗰日嘅5點半咧，都可以 log in 入去填嘅。咁每個同學就填一份啦嚇。咁就喺呢個 case 咧，就係如果你係omission，即係你係冇填到嘅話咧，咁你就唔會有任何嘅分數嘅嚇。即係話你交你就有你自己嘅分數，唔影響其他組員嘅。即係嗰個同學冇交係唔影響你嘅。OK，咁但係你自己有交先至攞到同學俾你嘅分數。OK，如果你冇交咧，你係攞唔到呢10分嘅。OK，咁每一次交嘅即係 submission 啦，就有即係佔10分啦嚇。咁就由我哋就要根據翻頭先講嘅 project list 咧，去填你呢個嘅 peer evaluation form。咁點樣要根據呢個 project list 咧？我舉一個例子啊。好，咁大家會見到咧 project group list 裏邊咧有組同埋有 member 嘅代編號嘅。OK，即係話喺 2A 班，大家見到啦，依家係 2A 班啦嚇。2A 班嘅第一組同學咧，咁第一位嘅同學咧就係 M1，OK，咁 M1 member one 咧就代表緊喺1A 即係 2A 班啦。第一組咧就係代表陳偉山同學嘅，OK，咁 member two 咧喺 2A 嘅第一組咧代表郭永恆同學嘅。OK，咁就如此類推，你睇翻自己嗰一組，究竟你個 M1、M2、M3 同 M4 究竟係邊一個組員？OK，全組係一致嘅啦。請你跟翻呢家見到嘅呢一個組員名單去揾翻你自己個組嘅 member 所代嘅即係組員編號。好啦，嗱，當你知道呢樣嘢嘅時候咧，咁我哋就會 back to 嗰個 peer evaluation form。OK。好啦，嗱咁咧你就由2去到10啦嚇，個分數俾喺即係俾你嘅組員啦嚇，2至10呢個分數，包括埋你自己，即係話你組員裏邊有4個人，去頭先啦，2A 班第一組有4個同學，OK，咁啊，如果我係即係其中一個 member，我要俾埋個分自己嘅，OK，咁咧就係10係最高啦，2係最低，OK，係10係最高分，2係最低分。嗱，當你交完你嗰個嘅 answer 嘅時候咧，你就會收到一個 Thank you for your submission 嘅 message。咁請你記住下，第6個步驟你要撳埋 continue 最後呢個掣，你先至叫做交咗成功嘅。OK，即係話你撳咗 submit your answer 之後，要撳埋 continue 先至叫做完全搞掂嘅你個 peer evaluation form。OK，咁如果你想 download 個 peer evaluation form 咧，就請你 click 呢度啦嚇。咁我未講呢個 download peer evaluation form 之前咧，OK，咁我就順便講埋點樣交功課。咁喺呢度咧就會有 submission period，OK，咁咧就係由現在9點半開始啦，今天嘅，去到12月13號嘅5點半下晝咧，你已經可以交功課噶啦。 咁只要你揾翻自己嘅 group 啦，click 入去咧，你就有個 box 啊，OK，咁你就可以將份功課咧遞入去嘅，OK。咁我喺度咧就會睇到有邊個同學交咗，邊個同學未交咁樣嘅，OK。咁你就每一組交一份得啦，OK。咁你如果驚嘅話，你咪揾兩個組員交咯，冇限定嘅，OK。但係就唔需要5個組員都交俾我啦，OK，或者4個組員交俾我。咁你一組可以交1份或者2份。咁如果你話兩個同學都啱啱 network 停，即係有 shut down 喎咁請你記住下，如果你真係遇到你嗰個 network 有問題嘅話咧，你係需要將嗰個 full screen 係 capture 俾我嘅，即係話俾我聽，即係究竟發生咩事啦，係啊，咁就連埋呢一個嘅證據咧，同你份功課咧就可以電入去你而家見到嘅呢個 email 度，咁你 click 入去咧就自然會出個電郵噶啦，OK，咁你就可以用呢個途徑喺遇到有 network 嘅 interruption 或者 delay 嘅時候咧，就可以用呢個方法交俾我，但係要有證據啦，OK，咁如果唔係嘅，我會 suggest 同學咧可以考慮多過一個組員，2個人去交呢份功課俾我，OK。係啦，咁至於有啲同學問我用乜嘢嘅形式去交咧嚇，呢度有寫㗎啦，呢度有寫清楚你用乜嘢嘅 save as 啲乜嘢 file 嘅形式啦，又或者係用啲乜嘢嘅 file name 啦，咁所以咧就請你睇清楚呢一度啦。OK，好，咁我哋咧就跟住會入去個即係 peer evaluation form。OK，好。咁當你入個 peer evaluation form 嘅時候咧，OK，好，我試一試轉去。好，咁你咧就 answer the question 啦嚇。咁你就會見到咧要打你個名啦，係啦，嗱記住咧係打返係你嗰個 student card 上邊你嗰個嘅名稱喎，OK，打返你個名，然後咧就入你嗰個嘅 contact number。好啦，咁至於班別咧，你就可以揀嘅。你只要撳個即係個 list 咧，佢就會 drop down 嘅啦。OK，咁你就可以揀 A 啦，2A 或 2B 或 2C。咁你係邊一組咧？咁你就 click 翻你係邊一組啦。咁頭先講緊啦，你嗰個 award 個 score to member one，即係 M1 啦。請你 refer 去你個 group list。頭先喺上邊 instruction 咧就已經有嘅啦。咁你就揀翻譬如我係第10分咧，就係最 significant 表現得最好嘅，OK。咁或者佢就係 little contribution 係最差嘅，咁你就有2分。咁我慎防有啲同學退咗學啦，因為我驚啊，唔知會唔會突然間呢2個禮拜有同學唔想讀㗎嘛，係咪啊？咁就 not existence，OK。咁但係咧就如果即係我見到依個同學冇退學，你又 not existent，我就可以 contact 你啦。咁所以 that's why 你張表嗰10分攞唔攞到？如果萬一有咩問題，我就可以根據你俾嘅 contact number 咧，我就揾你。OK，好，咁仲有呢度咧就係嗰個5個同學啦。如果冇嗰個人嘅，譬如我做得4個人，好似頭先 2A 班嘅 group 1咁樣咧，你就揀 non-existence，就係不存在個同學就得啦。咁最後請你寫翻你嗰個嘅 contribution，OK，即係你做咗啲乜嘢喺你嗰個負責喺呢個 assignment。咁最後就撳 submit your answer 啦，OK。咁如果你撳 submit answer 之後咧，佢叫你 continue，咁你就撳埋 continue 個掣咧，就代表係完成嗰個 submission 啦，OK。好，咁我就用要解釋借詞英文啦，OK。So in the Moodles you find the peer evaluation form. So you are required to have submission in between November 29th, 9:30 today, or until December 13th, 5:30. So if you, in the case of submission, you cannot gain any marks for each submissions. The maximum marks is 10. The maximum you can gain 10 marks to each submissions. So you have to refer the above project group list to find out your member in the groups. For the class 2A, okay, for example, so M1 represent Chan Wei San, and then member 2, M2 represent Kwok Wing Hoon. So So that's why you have to refer to the project group list in your CA2 instructions. So you have to award 2 to 10 score to your members, including yourself. So the 10 is the most, and 2 score score 2 is being the list. So you have to submit to submit your answer, and at the end you can find in returns of the thank you for your submissions this message, and you select the continue for the completions. Okay, you have to bear in mind you have to press the buttons. Okay, so for completion with the continue. Okay, so you have to click here and find you have to answer the questions. So fill in your names and show on your stats as your the same as your student card, and you have to input your contact number and drop down the list. You can find your class and your group number. So you have to give the score to your members. Okay, so refer to your group list in your class. So you have to state at the last all your contributions and write some words. So what you have done in this project, and you have to submit your answer. So you have to remember, you have to find the continue button at the end. Okay, so next, regarding your submission of assignment, the group assignment. So only one member, okay, so you require one projects to submit among the groups, okay, in the groups, okay, so in each of the group you only submit one copies. But if you find for safety purpose, so for more reliable method, you can submit maybe 2 copies. So find um, 2 members to do the submission. So if you cannot submit due to the networking problem, you can refer to the instruction 5. Okay, follow this one. Follow the required step to finish the submission if you got internet interruptions, okay, or delayed. So any questions? 好，大家有冇問題啊？ Any questions? OK，好。如果我哋 submission 即係 peer evaluation form 呢度冇問題嘅話，
Miss，
係點講？
係咪每個同學都填？
每個同學都填 ，OK，每個同學都填。咁如果冇交嘅話咧，咁就嗰個同學就冇 peer evaluation form 嘅分數10分。咁所以每個同學都需要填。OK，呢度有寫㗎嚇，喺個 instruction 度，我再 share 多一次俾大家睇。OK，好，嗱呢度嚇。呢度係 individual online peer evaluation form，每個人都交一張 ，OK？All the members 都係需要填嘅，得唔得？每個人都要交一張，咁你又唔需要向其他人交代你俾咗啲咩分數 ，OK？好，有冇問題？嗱冇遲交無論係 project 定 peer evaluation form 都唔會俾嗰個分嘅啦。好，仲有冇唔清楚嘅地方 ？So each of the students have to submit your own peer evaluation form. Okay, I have to clarify it. Okay, each students have to submit your own peer evaluation form. Okay, peer evaluation form. Okay，好，仲有冇咩問題？好，冇嘅話咧，我哋就依家會落去大家嘅第11同第12課。OK，咁呢兩課咧，我哋就只會係睇 Yes， 係你講下。
我想問嗰個 project 咧係咪分組或者分工俾全部同學一齊做啊？即係我哋嗰組，即係唔係自己個人做晒嘅？
嗱，既然叫得做 group project 咧，咁我 suppose 係每個人都要有 contribution 啦，係啦。嗱，如果你嘅同學咧佢係唔參與，即係我唔理你係 有分歧又好，定係佢玩失蹤都好啦，就係鬧交都好啦，都要俾我參與，OK？咁我要當中有啲協助或者調停啦。嗱，既然大家13號係交個 project 啦，咁我就俾下個星期一，OK？下個星期一或以前，如果你遇到問題，咁請你咧就可以 send MS Team message 俾我，同做 law 嘅情況一樣。請你話俾我聽，譬如有啲同學可能有啲同學已經退學啊，就係遇到呢啲問題咧，你就盡快通知我，咁我就睇下點幫你去解決。又或者你哋有同學唔參與啦，玩失蹤唔做都好啦，你都可以通知我，咁等我可以介入咧去協調一下。咁如果同學真係想覺得我今年唔交嘅啦個 project，我想再重讀。我係歡迎嘅，亦唔阻止，尊重你個人決定。咁我就會俾0分佢嘅。咁但係如果你唔通知我，OK，即係12月6號之前啊嚇。如果你唔通知我，你唔好去到12號、10號先通知我，13號交㗎啦。咁我俾 deadline 之前嘅1個禮拜，12月6號下晝5點半之前。5點半之前啊，12月6號。咁如果你唔通知我咧，suppose 所有同學都有 contribution 嘅啦。我唔理俾你去2分又好，俾10分嘅 peer evaluation 好，佢都有 contribution。OK，咁所以如果佢真係唔做嘢，你想即係話俾我聽，OK，首先要知會我要 involve 個解決嗰件事，我先至會0分嘅同學嘅，因為我都要向個 examination board 咧委員會咧，我要交代點解個同學係要0分。佢有參與，佢有名嘅，佢有冇退學，咁我都要有啲 evidence 去 support 嘅，即係希望同學講啊，即係大家都要講有憑有據咯，口講無憑，咁我都要了解下點解個同學係咁樣做，咁希望你都俾個機會老師去介入，同埋俾個機會嗰個同學 OK 去參與，每個同學都有權參與個 project。No matter 佢嘅意見，你覺得有幾唔啱，或者佢做嘅嘢有幾唔合理。OK，或者佢做嘅答案有幾錯都好啦，你俾個機會我去 judge，OK，咁如果我覺得 OK，咁咪 OK 咯嚇。咁所以我俾個即係 assistant 嘅即係 assistance 啦，啲協助啦，大家 OK。咁記住下個禮拜一之前有問題話俾我聽。咁所以你點樣分工咧，就你哋自己做決定啦。因為我希望同學習慣就係將來出去做嘢咧，你喺酒店入邊咧，好多時係老闆 assign 啲同事同你一齊工作，咁你要點樣去？即係去分工合作咧，呢個都係一個技巧，大家要訓練嘅。OK，咁所以 that's why 點解用 random 嘅形式俾你去同唔同嘅合作。咁所以你可以先，你哋決定自己點分啦。即係你中意就係自己個別走去分又得，你中意自己傾好咗先至分。但係你問我咧，我嘅意見咧係建議同學咧先一齊傾咗點樣做，再翻屋企去做自己個部分。嗱，記住要先開一次會。點解我咁講咧？我唔知舊年試過有個 case 咧，就係啲同學各自翻屋企分，即係分咗之後唔開會啊，各自分咗，你做第一條，我做第二條，你做第三條，冇開過會嘅情況之下，跟住其中一個同學唔乖啊，走去抄其他組，結果成組咧就要當係 plagiarism成個 project。因為個老師係或者個委員會係個聆訊委員會咧，係唔會理你嘅。你成個 project 當係一體咁樣去睇嘅，as 一個 team 嘅 teamwork 嚟嘅。咁所以你冇開個會咧，佢就覺得其他組員咧係冇盡到嗰個組員嘅責任，一齊去罰嘅。OK，咁但係如果你開咗會之後，你盡咗你組員責任，就係即係我哋唔係一齊打電腦一齊做噶嘛，但我哋盡咗責任啦。個別同學都有開過會嘅，一齊開咗個 group meeting，一個 team meeting，然後自己各自翻去做。嗱，咁佢走去抄咧就唔關你事啦。OK，咁嗰啲同學咧，舊年咧就有開到會嘅咧，嗰啲同學咧就冇問題嘅。但係試過有個 case 就係冇開過會，個 chairman 就覺得你都冇盡過個 team member 嘅責任，全組一齊0分個 project 嘅。OK，咁所以你問我點樣分法咧，我就會建議係你係每一組都分翻自己嘅工作，但係如果 be wise 去 handle，即係聰明啲去處理咧，as 一個 team 開咗會先，然後先至好去分工。OK，我唔理你係 MS team 定係 face to face，但係你係的確係有開過個 team meeting。OK，咁去保障自己咯，因為呢個叫 group project，希望大家同學明白，呢個係我俾你嘅建議咯，你可以唔跟我建議嘅。OK，好，有冇啲咩問題仲答唔答到你啊？頭先。 答唔答到頭先嗰位同學啊？
OK，
OK， 好，好，咁啊，仲有冇係講嚇？
我想問嗰個評分可唔可以重複分數嘅？
sorry，你講多一次，乜嘢重複分數？
即係俾咗一個人4分，跟住另外一個都俾4分，得唔得㗎？
冇問題㗎，對於我嚟講，我接受，係啦，即係你覺得個個都做得咁好，你俾晒10分我都得嘅，係啦。我係寬鬆嘅，即係我覺得呢方面可能大家都好盡力，哪怕有同學係佢嘅盡力係只係你嘅50分，但係佢已經盡咗力，佢真係只可以交到50分嘅嘢，但係佢盡咗力你見到，你咪俾10分佢咯，冇問題嘅，即係每個人嘅能力都唔一樣嘅，我相信，尤其是 accounting 添，咁但係每個人佢已經盡咗力，你見到嘅，你咪俾10分佢咯。如果你覺得佢嘅能力係100分嘅，但係佢只係攞得個即係 contribution 即係得2分，OK，佢個能力好高，但係佢唔肯願意參與嘅，咁你咪俾2分佢咯，OK，咁冇問題㗎，即係總之佢係你又俾到 score 佢咯，係啦，好，有冇咩問題？好，仲有冇啲咩問題，各位？OK，好，如果冇問題咧，咁我哋就 move on 去我哋今日最後嗰兩課書啦。嗱，咁呢兩課書咧，雖然我哋有擺到練習上去嘅，咁但係咧，其實呢兩課咧就淨係要大家識 theory 嘅啫。咁所以咧，我哋即係無論邊個 program 又好啦，定係柴灣定係黃克競嘅同學都好啦，呢兩課咧我哋只係講 theory，OK？咁練習咧就唔多講，我哋咧就主要都係重點教學啦，係啦。咁喺呢度咧就我開一開個練習。sorry，開一開份 lecture notes 咧，咁再同大家 share 翻個 screen，OK？好，嗱，如果有同學個別仲有關於即係又唔好意思問嘅，我明嘅嚇，咁你都可以私底下再 MS 添我。但係同學請你理解下，我見有啲同學咧星期六或者星期日嚟揾我嘅，咁但係你有時我即係放完假咧，係啦，我即係都有自己嘅時間啦，咁所以我見到如果我覺得緊急嘅，我就覆你啦嚇。咁如果冇嘅話，請你即係接受我喺 working hours 先至覆你啦。OK，好。咁呢兩課咧就比較資訊性多啲嘅，咁所以我哋就選擇咗咧就冇 tutorial exercise。OK，so the 11 and 12 we'll go through the lecture notes. Okay, we'll focus some key points. We won't do the exercise with the students. Okay, these two chapters are informative. Okay, more informative. So that's why we decide just attached the exercise and tutorial worksheets in the Moodles. We upload these two pieces of data, the exercise and also the questions to the Moodles, but we won't go through it. Okay, we only go through the lecture notes. OK， 好，咁咧第一課咧 ，OK，咁就係source of capital。好啦，咁點解我哋要即係資本？點解我需要攞啲資金翻嚟咧？咁好多時可能同學都知嘅，就係即係我哋係需要譬如例如我哋開 set up business 啦，即係又或者係我哋開條新嘅 product line 啦，開多間新嘅酒店啦，所以你需要一啲資金啦。另外可能有一啲嘅基礎建設，例如譬如可能換個部 lift 啦。可能做一啲翻新啦，咁或者可能個焗爐舊啦，我哋都需要咧就係去換咗啲舊嘅機器，或者改良一啲技術，甚至可能我哋會有一啲新嘅聘請啦，可能請啲國際級嘅人馬啦，又或者係即係一啲管理啦，甚至係做一啲 training 俾啲同事，咁我哋咧都會係需要一啲資金。咁到最後可能係講緊，譬如庫存量增加啦，可能有一啲嘅紅酒啦，可能有一啲嘅食品啦，可能係啱啱係一啲季節性 seasonal 嘅，咁我哋都會去入啲存貨，咁都需要一啲增加啲資金，咁所以咧我哋就 即係要去攞唔同嘅 fundings。Okay, since there's various needs to obtain capital funds from outside. Okay, so first of all, we have to develop the business, maybe expansions or have new product line, or even maybe we can improve the infrastructure to replace some old or obsolete equipments, for example, cooking equipments or maybe the elevators. So we have to improve the new facilities with the technology improvements. So, and next we are maybe have some hiring for the new employee or have create some training courses to our employee to enhance their working skills or maybe have more talents developments for the employee. So we have to increase the working capital due to increasing the inventory levels or maybe in the seasonal inventory. You have to put some wet wine, for example, or some food, for some festivals held in the company as the special activities, in the hotels. So the source of funds. 好，咁我哋跟住咧就會睇下嗰個嘅資金來源嘅。咁喺資金來源咧，我哋有幾種唔同嘅來源，有短期、中期、長期。咁喺呢一課咧，我哋最主要睇長期。咁中期、短期我哋都會講下嘅。咁但係長期咧對我哋嘅酒店影響最大，因為長期係講緊5年打後嘅，即係5年之後可能係10年、20年。咁其實你大家知道啦，即係1年嗰個業界都變得好快啦。譬如 Covid 咁樣，2年內大家成個行都完全唔同晒個運作模式啦，係啦，可能 focus 嘅產品都好唔同。以前可能就係一啲 overseas 啊或者 corporate 嘅客啦，咁睇到今時今日你見到咧都係 focus 喺一啲 local 嘅 staycation 啊咁有好多唔同嘅一啲特別嘅 offer， 甚至可能即係以前你唔係好 prefer 有寵物帶入去酒店，依家直情係有啲酒店係做到接受即係寵物嘅即係入住啊咁樣，淨係有啲就專係主攻就係小朋友嘅市場，有啲係主攻動物嘅市場咁樣，寵物嘅市場。咁所以喺呢度咧，你會見到個業界咧其實轉變得好快。咁所以你唔好話5年啦，可能講即係唔好話10年啦，可能5年都已經好唔同，2年都好唔同。咁所以喺呢度咧，如果你集資嘅時候用唔同嘅 funding 啫，OK，咁你會有對於你個盈利啦，或者有冇花紅分啦，嗰度係會有好大嘅影響嘅。咁所以我哋咧就會睇下唔同嘅 financing 啦，OK？好，since we talk about the source of capital fundings, so we have 3 sources. The first is short-term financing and intermediate terms financing, and last is long-term financing. So short-term financing, which is the duration less than 1 year. Okay, so you have to return all the money. So for intermediates, it's 2 years to 5 years. So more than 5 years, we call long-term financing. Okay, so you have to know about the consequences of your debts or your money, obtaining by long-term financing, because you have to pay a lot of interest, or maybe you have to pay some dividends. So you have to consider all these factors before you make decisions. So next is we go to the short-term financing, which less than 1 year. The financing which is less than 1 year, you have to return all the money. So we have several examples in this PowerPoint. 好，咁我哋咧就跟住就係睇短期融資啦嚇。咁融資即係集資，而係講緊點樣去籌集到資金。咁我哋呢度有3個嘅例子啦。咁第一個咧就係 trade credit， 咁我哋講嘅貿易信貸啦。咁貿易信貸裏邊咧就講緊係你需要咧就係同你嘅 supplier， 即係 vendors， 即係我講嘅供應商啊。之前講掂數嘅嚇，即係唔係你臨時臨急決定嘅，OK？譬如我30日先找一次數俾你，或者60日先找一次數俾你，咁所以係一個 fix 嘅 terms 嚟嘅，定咗嘅，OK？咁尤其是譬如食物供應商，你唔係次次 抌低袋魚喺個餐廳度就要找數㗎嘛，可能吸個印月結咁樣。咁所以咧喺呢度咧就係即係我哋叫做 trade credits。OK，咁另外就係一個叫做短期貸款咧，叫 short term loan 啦。咁 short term loan 咧就係講緊可能一啲你預計有啲季節性嘅波動收唔到錢啊，又或者係嗰個 low 即係我哋講嘅即係 low season 啊，你係未必有好多生意嘅，咁你就問銀行借定一嚿錢。咁但係頭先講過啦，因為呢個係短過1年啦，所以1年內你就要還款㗎啦。咁而且好多時都係問銀行借啦，就好少問咩財務公司啊呢啲嚇。通常銀行都好穩健嘅咁所以都係即係同啲 commercial bank 㗎。OK，其實 bank 裏邊有好多種嘅。OK，有啲叫 private bank，有啲叫做 commercial bank。commercial bank 其實大家就喺街頭見到係嗰啲鋪面有嗰啲叫 commercial bank 啦。咁另外就係你會有償還期啦。OK，咁償還期裏邊你要俾利息啦嚇。咁仲有一個叫做 line of credit。咁 line of credit 就係講緊啲透支啊，即係認同你嘅信用卡一樣，你唔用咧係冇問題嘅，你申請咗，但係 once 你用嘅時候咧，你要準時找數。咁喺裏邊可能會有 get involved 就係一啲嘅 interest 啦、利息，又或者係咧有譬如可能冇利息，但係有啲手續費啦，佢叫做。咁所以有好幾種唔同嘅即係備用信貸嘅。OK。咁就認同你嘅信用卡用咗先至要找，OK，需要用嘅時候先用咯，唔需要你可以唔使用嘅，亦唔需要俾利息，亦唔需要還錢嘅。但係你用嘅時候就需要俾利息同埋要還錢啦，OK。咁所以就我有一個靈活性啦，係啦，有個彈性喺度啦，就係你萬一有咩事嘅就可以即刻撥嚿錢過去，咁有個彈性喺度。Okay, so for short-term financing, we have 3 examples. The first one is trade credits. So you have to extend by the supplier and vendors of goods and services. So this is you have to arrange in advance with your suppliers or vendors. So for example, it's with suppliers. So you have to just receive the invoice and you have to do the settlement within 30 days, maybe even 60 days, which is agreed by both parties. Okay. So next is the short-term loans. You have the seasonal species fluctuations to deal with these problems. So we have to borrow some borrow loan from the commercial bank, and we have to pay within 1 year. So that's why we call this short-term financing. So when you do the installments, which includes the principal and the interest repayments. So next is the lines of credits. So you have to make this is the arrangement of the bank. So you have to allow you to overdraft up to the agreed limit. So it provides a flexibility. So you have to in the hard time you can have to settle your check or even some payments in the time whilst you're on your own demand. So is this method you also pay the interest. Okay, if you're not using it, you just have no overdraft, you're not required to pay anything. Okay, so the only payment is when you credit, okay, from your accounts. Okay. 好，下一個咧就係中期嘅集資啦。咁中期集資就係我哋講嘅定期貸款啦，包括係大家成日知嘅分期付款啦，又或者係做借嚿錢翻嚟做分期都得。咁成日都聽到係打電話問你借唔借啊？分幾多期啊？12期啊？24期啊？48期啊？咁樣咁36啊咁就好多唔同嘅期數俾你。咁呢啲都係啲短期嘅貸款，within 5年內嘅。OK，咁所以咧就你聽到佢成日都話可以用5年時間先還嘅，但係記住啊，即係借唔借要還得好先至借啊，成日都咁講嘅。OK，咁所以就係喺另外一種大家最常見就係供車啦嚇，或者供洗衣機啊、電器啊咁樣就用分期付款。咁我之前都有講過，其實你個分期付款咧，佢話免息分期其實係假嘅，因為佢標價其實計咗當你分期㗎，裏邊已經包埋利息，包埋所有嘢。咁所以你唔做分期嘅話咧，其實都係要俾嗰個價嘅。OK，你都係俾埋有分期嗰個價錢。咁但係如果做分期咧，就係即係 又係同一個價錢啦。咁所以即係羊毛出在人身上啦嚇。如果你唔用分期嘅話咧，其實你都係俾緊分期個價嘅。OK，咁只係佢計咗落去冇話俾你聽啫。Okay, so in the intermediate terms financing, we have a fixed loan, which within 5 years settlements. So the bank loan will be repaid in several years. Okay, and which equal each installments you have to pay equal amount. So next is the hire purchase. So when you purchase of equipment, machines or vehicles, so just for lorry or cars or shuttle bus or coaches, so you have to pay by installments. We call this as hire purchase. So usually offered by the seller, okay, maybe the car seller or maybe the equipment seller. So actually the DD's price already include all the interest, or even though they claim this is no interest or paid for the hire purchase, but in fact the list price already include all the interest in the list price. So it is a little tricks, okay? If you really pay the list price, they earned much more than you require the high purchase payments. So next is the long-term financing. Okay, the long-term financing is we have three major sources. So the first one is long-term mortgage debts and the bonds, and the final is shareholders equity. So use the funds to start up a business because it's usually cover more than 5 years. So maybe 10 or even maybe 20 years. So when your financing is more than 5, we call this is long-term financing. 好，咁我哋咧喺長期嘅融資裏邊咧就會有start up 嗰個 business 啊，好多時可能你起間新酒店啦，又或者係你會即係做維修啦，咁你自己會儲啲錢啦。之前計過嗰啲 NPV 啊、IRR 啊，咁大家都知道係可以自己事先儲定啲錢嘅。咁但係原來發覺儲唔到咁多嘅喎，可能我哋都需要問人借啲先至可以趕快完成成件事。咁你就需要做到一啲長期嘅融資，尤其是可能起酒店咧，唔係講緊即係1000幾百萬，OK，可能係過億嘅咁。咁所以咧就大家都要即係，尤其是你又要涉及買地啊，可能又會租地啊，甚至係建築物料啊咁。咁呢啲都係即係好昂貴嘅嘢啦嚇。咁喺呢度咧就有3個嘅 major sources 啊，有3個。咁第一就係長期嘅按揭啦，即係我講嘅買樓嘅時候你會用到㗎啦。另外就係債券啦，同埋我哋講嘅股份啦，OK，資本老闆拎翻嚟嘅。OK，咁我哋先講就係嗰個嘅按揭貸款。咁好多時我哋就會定期定息，呢個係定額啦，應該定額嘅還款。咁喺裏邊咧就係我嚟有抵押品嘅，OK。咁原因就係即係好似你買樓咁樣啦，你供唔掂層樓啦，咁咪收你層樓，我嚟拍賣咯，OK。咁所以咧就有層樓佢先至肯借咁多錢俾你。如果唔係齋憑你一個人，佢點會借咁多錢俾你咧？咁你有個資產喺度，咁佢先借俾你嘅。咁我哋就係長期嘅融資啦，咁。咁另外咧就係一個嘅debt financing 啦，我講嘅債券。咁債券咧就唔係間間公司係出得嘅，要符合好多條件嘅。咁喺即係喺嗰個金管局裏邊咧，咁我哋咧就係需要有要求到係即係你有幾多嘅人數啦，個 turnover 即係嗰個生意額啦，咁同埋你資金嘅存放啦、資產啦嚇，即係你要符合好多嘅條件，去到一個好。即係一個好巨大金額啦，好多人咁樣，佢先至會俾你發行債券，就唔係普通人可以發行嘅。咁喺呢度咧就係即係有啲跨國嘅公司啦、跨國嘅企業啦，咁佢哋就有資格 OK 去發行債券啦。咁你譬如大家最常聽到就係美國國庫債券啦，係啦，即係政府發行嘅債券，咁就最穩陣啦，係咪啊？咁我哋香港都有即係呢個 iBonds 啊，係啊，咁都有政府發行嘅債券啦，咁所以咧就即係呢啲就即係叫穩陣啲啦嚇。咁你有特定嘅息啦，咁到期嘅佢就還翻啲錢俾你啦。OK，so for the first two types of long-term financing. So the first one is debts, okay, mortgage debts. So this is long-term forms of debt financing which involve collaterals, and the repayments are require equal installments, maybe longer than up to at least 5 years or more. So this is you have to pay interest and the principal, okay, in your each installment. So next is the bonds. So bond issuance involve a lot of requirements from the monetary institutes. So this is a long-term financing which usually used by the large corporations or MNC. So it issues a lot of bonds to the allot for in the allotments for the holders. So they have if you are the holders, you can pay for your pay your for money, and in returns you can earn the interest. And when your bonds mature, on the maturity days, you can receive your principals. So some bonds is we call convertible bonds. So you can convert into the shares of the company. So it depends on the terms and condition of your bonds. You have options. Okay, so another types of long-term financing is issuing shares to your shareholders. So there are two options. So the first one is preference shares and other is common shares. For the preference shares, this is a form of equity financing. You have the company required to pay the fixed dividend payments, and when the company closed down, these preference shares holders are have first priority to claim the assets in the liquidations. So that's why they can get back their money earlier than the common shares holder. So next is the common shares. So this is another kind of equity financing. So each shares are require a part of company ownerships. So for the publicly listed company, not private one, you can trade your common shares in the exchange square. So for these public listed company, so when you issue the new shares, we call IPO, initial public offering. So the overage sells these common shares to the public through the bank, and actually all the residents can applied for the allotments. So someone will use maybe on pro rata basis, you can get your shares during the allotments and become the list of the public and the listed company. They can open the trade in the stock markets, okay? And when you get the new shares. 好，咁我哋咧就喺股東入股嗰度咧，就即係我哋嘅買股份啦嚇。嗱頭先嗰啲係債嚟嘅，依家嚟緊呢啲咧就係股東講即係投資入公司嘅，咁所以你唔需要還嘅呢筆錢。咁我哋首先就係講緊優先股啦嚇，優先股咧就係股權嘅集資嚟嘅。你買咗間公司嘅股票，你就等佢派息。咁呢兩種股票嘅分別咧，優先股就係有固定嘅利息支付。咁同樣啦，佢有一缺點嘅嚇，就係每年開週年大會嘅時候咧，優先股係冇份開週年大會嘅。咁即係話佢唔可以 get involved 任何嘅管理程序裏邊，純粹就係等收息嘅啫。咁當公司清盤即係執笠嘅時候咧，佢就比普通股早一個 rank，可以早一個即係早一層次可以去接濟去收翻啲錢咁樣啦嚇。咁而普通股咧就係如果係上市公司，我哋講嘅 public 即係 public 嘅 limited 咧 ，OK，咁咧就係即係嗰講嘅public limited company 啦，就係上市嘅有限公司係啦。咁通常就係 有啲就係私人嘅有限公司，就係 private limited company。OK，咁如果 private 嘅咧，就係你屋企樓下嗰啲雲吞麵鋪啊、家私鋪啊、文具鋪啊，咁佢都可以叫有限公司嘅。咁但係可以買賣股票咧，就只可以係上市公司，我哋講嘅 public company limited。OK，咁就話 limited company 都得。咁就佢哋發行嘅新股咧，咁就可以喺交易廣場裏面買賣啦。咁我哋叫 IPO 啦，抽新股。OK，咁你記住抽股份咧就得派股息嘅啫。咁就揸住持有股票咧，就只有派股息，就冇得還翻嚿錢俾你嘅，除非佢執笠，你仲要去還晒俾所有債權人先輪到你嘅。咁呢度咧，我哋講緊籌集資金有啲成本啦。咁嗱，有好幾種唔同嘅計法，我哋就唔同大家即係詳細逐個睇啦。因為可能大家都唔係好需要知道究竟個成本有幾多或者點樣計，淨係想講一講呢家見到嘅呢一張 OK 第17張 PowerPoint。咁第17張 PowerPoint 咧就係講一種 method 叫 WACC，即係當我要籌集一個2500幾萬嘅資金嘅時候咧，我用不同形式嘅途徑去獲得呢啲錢翻嚟。咁但係每一樣嘅即係都有佢自己發行嘅成本啦。咁我哋點樣去計嗰個綜合成件事、成件籌集嘅資金嘅成本咧？咁我哋就會用比例形式，咁啊將你嗰個資金喺成筆款項裏邊嘅百分比乘翻嗰個成本，你計出嚟嗰個成本嘅數值，咁我哋按比例去計翻呢一個發行嘅總成本係幾多？咁呢個我哋就叫做 weighted average 啦，即係用平均法去計。OK， 純粹俾你知道呢一樣嘅 WACC weighted average 嘅 cost of capital 呢一種叫加權平均資金成本法則，你聽過就得㗎啦，你知道呢樣嘢就可以啦。OK， 好，咁呢課咧就係咁多啦。OK，so we have to evaluate the cost of capital. So by the weighted average cost of capital method. So according to the examples, so we are required to raise the money for 25,360,000. So we have come from raise this money from various sources. So for the calculation of the cost, we have to use the proportions of the fundings to the total funds. So each of the methods, each of the sources of raising funds have their cost, their own cost. So we have to times the percentage of fundings to the percentage of funding to the total fundings times the cost of capital. So you can find the weighted cost. And finally, so for these capital raising, or we have the weighted cost is 10.52%. So you just know this is one method to evaluate the cost of raising funds. So this is the end of these chapters. So next we have the last chapters, which is easy. So this is for your information, more informative chapters. So provide you some information considering the financing decisions. 咁我哋咧就喺籌集資金裏邊咧，哇，究竟籌集幾多咧？多與少啊？定係點樣做係比較適合咧？咁即係究竟借錢多啲好啊，定係問股東攞錢翻嚟好咧？個比例應該幾多？我哋咧其實業界裏邊原來有一啲嘅 data 有啲指標嘅。OK， 一陣同大家分享一下。咁呢度咧就有一個 consideration of financing decision。OK， 咁點解有幾種嘅重要嘅 issue 咧？咁有幾個重要嘅決策啦。咁首先就係你究竟要籌幾多錢先咁樣。咁因為如果你籌得多錢，梗係用唔同嘅途徑啦。咁你籌好少嘅，咁你梗係可能就咁問銀行借就已經搞掂啦。咁另外就係幾時要啦，因為你知做 project 可能長期嘅融資係講緊5年至10年以上，即係5年以上㗎嘛。咁所以如果你究竟幾時攞到筆錢，我哋要幾時還呢筆錢，同埋幾時有第2階段、第3個階段，咁你要知道啦。OK， so there are 4 main consideration of financing decisions. The first one is you have to know how much you need. Okay, so and when you need it. So you have to arrange the repayments and also for the projects. It just lasts long for long-term projects. You have not long for maybe more than 5 years. So you have to decide. They got some different phases, maybe phase 1, 2, 3. So when you will need the money. So when you have to raise your money based on these phases. Okay. And the other two considerations is the type of proportion of fundings or capital to be used in financing the projects. So if the portion of financing used, so you have to address uh, the consequences or maybe the outcome. Okay, so you have to pay the interest or maybe you have to pay the money during the maturity. So you have to make sure you have ability to do the settlements. And next is the maturity days, the length of the time of maturity. So you have to make sure the depth of various maturities obtained from the debt financing. So it may be require you to have commitments of your debt obligations. OK，咁所以咧就喺呢度有另外兩種嘅考量啦。第一咧就係嗰個嘅資金種類比例啦。咁你需要就係留意就係個比例，究竟借錢好啊，定係問股東集資投資落嚟公司好咧？咁有啲就需要還嘅，有啲就唔需要還嘅。中間要俾利息或者係股息，咁你要考慮呢一啲嘢啦。另外就係到期日啦，尤其是係借錢啦。咁你一次過借一大嚿錢，定係分好多期咁樣，有唔同期嘅工程，咁我哋分好幾期，咁你就分散咗嗰啲嘅還款期，就好似你分幾張卡去用，咁月頭、月中、月尾咁攤開嚟還，咪容易啲咯。咁如果一嚿數咁還嘅，可能你月頭就還嘅，咁你就可能好吃力啦咁。OK，咁可能你中間做啲 part time 就可以夠錢還啦。OK，咁所以就係邊一叫做最 optimal 最好嘅 capital structure 咧？咁我哋就睇翻業界啦。OK，so we call the optimal capital structure. We have some data for you as the reference. So you can see for the restaurant groups or hotel groups, usually we have some data from the past 20 years, and you find we have drawn a conclusion that the restaurant consists 44% to 54% is from very expectations for your debt financing. But for hotels, since you have more assets on hand, so your consistency in the range of the debt financing is to be from 49% to 65%. So it depends on your capacity of or your repayments and your assets possessions. So the lender, okay, they will consider various factors to whether they will grant you the loan or how long you have the maturity. So this is the result. You find to maximize the capital structures, so which you can have leverage ratios, but you have to remember the higher the leverage ratio you have, the higher risk you got on hand. So you have to face. So that's why you have consider the data from your industry as some reference. OK， 好，咁喺業界裏邊咧，其實有一啲嘅考量啦嚇，或者一啲資料啦嚇，經過嗰 past 20 years 咧，其實你發覺即係酒樓就係44至54%，而酒店咧就係49至65%。咁好多時就希望我哋可以善用我哋嘅資金啦，咁所以咧就會喺呢個 range 裏邊咧就最穩陣㗎啦。OK， 就係45至50或者55至60啦，唔同嘅 industry 裏邊就留意啦。OK， 咁所以我哋要留意還款期啦，咁就make sure 你自己有個靈活性就可以還款啦。OK， 咁我哋呢一課咧就嚟到呢一度啦。OK， 好。咁就如果請大家同學留意咧，就係個 revision 嘅時間同埋地點。咁如果有任何問題嘅，歡迎你再揾我。OK， 咁就今日就係咁多啦。OK， 咁it's time for the class is over, so we see you in the revisions.